Running late and can't wait at the gate? We got you. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited has introduced a fast and easier way to make payments to your accounts through the GT&T mobile money services. Here's how. Click on the MMG app. Under Services, select Pay Bills. When you are there, look for the Financial Institution option. Once that is done, select Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited to pay your loan or make payments to your savings. Payments to the credit union made easier. GPS CCU, the credit union you can bank on. Running late and can't wait at the gate? We got you. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited has introduced a fast and easier way to make payments to your accounts through the GT&T mobile money services. Here's how. Click on the MMG app. Under
Will you get mine?
Absolutely.
Me, you had a conversation.
Running late and can't wait at the gate? We got you. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited has introduced a fast and easier way to make payments to your accounts through the GT&T mobile money services. Here's how. Click on the MMG app. Under Services, select Pay Bills. When you are there, look for the Financial Institution option. Once that is done, select Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited to pay your loan or make payments to your savings. Payments to the credit union made easier. GPS CCU, the credit union you can bank on.
And good evening. You're tuning to Insight on 104.1 Light FM. I'm your host, Ivor Wharton, and my co-host this evening is the beautiful Siobhan Sears. So, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Insight is a business program which focuses on all aspects of business. That is, how to register a business, the importance of compliance, the how to access financing and technical support in the relevant agencies you should get to know depending on the nature of your business. So it is important that you tune into Insight, and this evening we will be discussing crisis management that Siobhan will be taking the lead on. Siobhan?
Yes. Good evening, Ivor. Good evening to our listeners, both locally and internationally. I'm Siobhan Sears, Ivor's co-host for this evening. And like she said, we'll be talking about crisis management. But before we get into that, I hope you get your pen and your papers and we sit and take notes, because remember, we're preparing you for your business, we're preparing you for the world, and we're also preparing you to be able to articulate your position, whether whatever you decide to do, whatever is your form of business, you must be able to present it in a way that your target audience, which will be your customers, would be able to listen and understand and want to give you business, rather bring business to you. With that being said, Sears Consultancy Services Incorporated is a public relations firm. However, we specialize in communication, crisis, reputation, relationship, which is business to business and business to customer management. We also offer creative and digital marketing, as well as business solutions. Like Ivor said, we'll be talking a bit about crisis management. Now, if you look around, even in your home, at work, there's always from time to time some form of crisis. Even recently, if you look at the pandemic, that was a crisis because it impacted our lives, our work, our relationships. And so we had to manage that. Similarly, in any crisis, we have to be able to manage those crises in order to pivot or to scale our business or pivot. Because imagine if you have a crisis in your business and you're unable to manage that, it might cause your business to fail. But if you're able to manage it and manage it effectively, you'll be able to know pivot in a way that you're able to change whatever the dynamics are to something more positive. So in saying that, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to anybody listening? In a narrow framework in communication, we will say crisis is something that is a process that may cause damage or inflict some form of negative impact on an organization, a person, an organization, stakeholders. And again, I said the pandemic, and that was a crisis. I'm sure each of you could relate to the fact that our business was closed because of that. And last week we heard, not last week, the week before, we heard from Duran Property Management, where the young lady Tiffany, she's a lawyer, but then she had to pivot because she wasn't getting the amount of jobs to sustain her livelihood. And so in pivoting, she was able to open Total Property Management, a business that brought in revenue so that she was able to take care of her family and herself and her responsibilities. And in like manner, crisis is how we deal with it. What do? We have to prevent it. What if we cannot prevent it? We have to be able to mitigate it. And in mitigating it, we have to be able to communicate to the persons who might be affected. Like, for example, again, I'm going to use the pandemic. During the pandemic, many businesses, and why I'm using the pandemic is because you, the listeners, you would be able to easily understand the concept because the pandemic was just recently. Businesses had to pivot in that they were saying, okay, you have to get a mask before you come in, you have to sanitize your hands. Some places you go, you had to ensure you got a vaccination card. And so because it affected not only the business, it affected individuals and homes and families and all of that. People had to understand the concept and how did we, or how were we able to understand that through communication. So there were national interventions whereby the government put out certain stipulation. You can't be out after a certain time. You have to social distance. You have to ensure you have your mask, your vaccination, and all these things, and sanitize. And then hence, there was a need now. So look at this. Look how business was created. Things that we never used to really focus on and buy a lot of it. These sanitizing products, all these preventative products, that now became the biggest thing in the world. And so everybody was rushing. Remember, there was a time when there wasn't any tissue. Remember, Ivor?
I remember that.
Everybody was buying out the toilet papers and the tissues. And then when you really sit and think about it, to me, it was like a fad because what was the impact of the pandemic, which was COVID, and was the correlation between COVID and the toilet tissue? You understand? But the whole concept of having these detergent, having tissue, having toilet paper, people started to run crazy in terms of buying and over shopping. And then if you look now, we have a lot of stocks still because of the pandemic is kind of subsiding, but we have these stock. And how were people able to do that? How was people able to create this big intervention? Oh, let me sell toilet paper, let me sell hand sanitizer. It's because of now seeing the need in the market. So, Ivor, could you see the correlation of
Yes,
how Now people looking. So if you're creating, I'm gonna shift a little bit and come back to crisis. Because remember, this program is to inspire you to create your business. And so that's how you create, because people saw the need that, listen, people gonna need hand sanitizer, they're gonna need toilet tissue, they're gonna need paper wrappers, they're gonna need all these things. And so you know what, I'm gonna bring in these products and sell them, and that's how a business was created. Bringing it home to what we discussed, Tiffany was able to create our business because in the pandemic now, a lot of people wanted they wanted homes to rent, they wanted places to rent for whether it's business, home, household use or whatever. And so she was able to create Duran Property Management because of that during the pandemic. What are your thoughts, Ivor?
You know, one of the things that you saw in Guyana is that lots of businesses were forced to close because they didn't have systems in place that actually would have allowed them to continue their businesses, or in some regards their businesses not closed, but it significantly
Reduce.
reduced
And
because
there, I want to just jump in there because that's a crucial question, statement that you just made in terms of in a crisis. Now, during a crisis, or some people has the ability to see crisis or crises before it happen, and there is where Sears Consultancy Services comes in, because we're able to assess your business, assess your situation, say, listen, based on this, recently when we had that, I'm not going to call name, but a company whereby the girl was crushed in the industrial environment. Now, if let's say Sears do an assessment of that company, well, the incident already occurred, but then what would we do? First thing we would have want to do as a company is to say, listen, let's come out there, because most people were talking about how the company was, but then you come out and you say, listen, this is what happened, but we did not foresee this, we didn't expect it to happen, but it happened, and we empathize with the family and whatnot. Then we go through the process of putting measures in place, Ivor, to prevent that from
that is so true.
ever happening again. And if it do happen again, it would not be so detrimental. You understand? So there is where we assess the business and say, well, listen, this is, so we have three types of interventions, Ivor. We have the before, the during, and the after. So the before is like when we come in, there's no crisis. We look at what's happening and we create a risk management solution. We customize a risk management solution for that business. And we say, well, listen, because this is let's say, because every business, you got industrial, commercial, corporate, whatever. We customize it to suit. So in an industrial environment, we will say, okay, herein lies the potential for X, Y, and Z. Therefore, we have a team of people, just like how we had last week, the ISO certification and so forth, and they got a standard. Global compliance got a standard. And so, in the like manner, for crisis management, we have a standard. So we'll say, in this situation, we give you this solution, 1, 2, 3, to mitigate this from ever happening. So there's the before. The during is like, okay, in the case whereby you just mentioned it, Ivor, where you said some businesses were forced to close during the pandemic, while some were forced to reduce the intake, meaning the revenue would have cut as well, because if you can't do the level or the amount of business that you usually do, it means that you're taking home less revenue, and that's a problem nobody wants to reduce. And so when we do assessment during, so we had it before, the during now is whereby we say, well, okay, a situation occurred, the pandemic, or even that same situation that I cited earlier. And so we say, well, all right, now this thing happened, we had a pandemic, and how could we pivot? So, for example, if I had a business whereby I'm selling clothes, because that's a typical one. I'm selling clothes. Nobody's going out during the pandemic, therefore I cannot sell clothes. But then I could have pivoted that business to say, listen, I'm going to be a payment agent for persons, company, individual, whatever. And so you remember, people were very scared at that time. So now I would say, well, listen, I open up, I launch my business, I will pay bills. And I come by Ivor, I go by somebody else, I go to companies, I pick up all the bills, or I do the pickup, and then I use the MMG service and let them send the money through the MMG service. I pay all the bills and I scan the receipts and send them back. Or in like manner, to mitigate all of that, I have the company scan the bills, send them to me, MMG the monies to me, including my charges, because that would be done at a charge, and I pay the bills and then scan back the receipts and send them back. So there's what we call pivoting the business. So you're selling clothes, but then the pandemic came, and you have to do something, because you have to get monies to pay your bills and to be a responsible citizen. And so that's how we that's just using a typical example for us to understand, our listeners and everybody who's tuned in to this program. So that's how you use it. So we customize different solutions. And then there's the after Ivor, like, okay, something would have happened. Now the pandemic is almost, it would have almost subsided. And so what are we going to do? What else can we do, or what could we do differently? And even using the same case with the selling clothes and then moving to paying bills, I come back now. So the pandemic after, I'm able to now do 2 businesses. You see where I'm heading with this, Ivor?
Yeah.
And that is simply what we call crisis management. Because remember, the purpose of crisis management is to protect your organization, the sector, the stakeholders. Imagine if somebody put monies into my business and they're like, now what is going to happen with my money? My stakeholder, they're studying that, so I have to give them that level of comfort. Imagine I take a loan from the bank, and the bank is thinking, okay, well, if she's unable to pay, then I'll have to come in and maybe take whatever assets I have.
Yeah.
But then if I'm able to pivot and manage my crisis or crises, I'm now able to take care of all of my responsibilities.
And Siobhan, the other thing that I would like for you to talk on, that we are on crisis management, is the fact that the world has changed. The world, the business world has changed, because people basically are sometimes feel that they're no longer doing business with an entity, but they're doing business with a person, with a personality. So they come and they support your business because, in Guyana we say, I like your spirit, or shitectomy or something. So we support the business because of who the person is, not what we believe we can get from the company. It is while we now have the relationship with the company that we recognize how important they are to us. So it means now that the person is no longer separate. A customer may no longer see you separate from your business. So how your personal life can have an impact on your management, on your business.
Excellent. I like where you're heading with that, Ivor. And this is so crucial, how you as a business person present yourself, because indeed, when people come, if people are going to support Sears Consultancy Services Incorporated, they're really supporting it because I am annexed to Sears Consultancy Services Incorporated. I am the owner. Whoosh, the first thing people like to do is so incredible. that you mentioned that, because I'm smiling as I'm listening to what you're saying, Ivo, because whenever people hear about a business, the first thing they do is Google to see who is the owner of that business. So they might hear of something, and let's say Sears Consultancy. Sears Consultancy, who's the owner of Sears Consultancy? People gone digging right away. They gone to Google, they gone to Facebook, they gone to all these
Or they're
social media
calling a friend.
platforms, and they gonna dig up. And when they find you now, and if you are well presented, meaning not presented dress. When people hear well presented, they think, oh, it's all about how you look. No, people start digging out to your character. Who's this person? Where they came from? Were they involved in anything illegally? Were they involved in anything? How do they deal with people? How do they deal with situations? People start looking to the deeper you. Who's this person behind this thing? And people are very deterrent to, at least I am. If I start digging and I recognize, well, oh my God, this person has a rep. We normally say a rep. They got a reputation. And we say a bad reputation, And so right away, like, okay, I don't want to affiliate. Because for me, my business, even in taking jobs, if I recognize that, your, what we call values, the values, your core values does not align with my company's core value, even my personal values, I try to distance myself, because I want to maintain honesty, integrity, you know. I want to be accountable to my customers. I want to make sure that I maintain confidentiality. And so you don't want that negative kind of connotation with your name, especially when you're building a brand. And so you are certainly right when you said, the person cannot be separated from the business. And I agree with that 110%. And I want to let our listeners know that when we say separated, we don't mean that, okay, because it's my business, I'm out there, and this is Chevron, 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 Chevron. That's not what we're speaking about. We're speaking about brand, how you present your brand, what your brand stands for, what are your core values, what are you offering to your customers, what type of person are you? Because imagine if I'm a convict and I'm robbing people, and then I gone and open a business. You know what kind of impact that would have on my customers eventually, because these things do trickle down. Whatever we stand for, we inculcate, and we kind of superimpose into things that we're doing. Is like, we have to even bring this down low, Ivor, to like even nurturing. Like when you're growing up, what kind of environment you come from, your family life and all that. And it's funny that you really raised this issue, because I went to a business meeting, and the owner for the company that we were talking, about what I'm offering to the person's business and what they have to offer, and that exchange. And the person venturing to asking me about my family background, and right there my brain started to send off these bells, like, oh, but yes, people want to know who they're dealing with. They want to know where you came from, and that is why you cannot separate you from your business. You cannot separate what you stand for from your business, because it's going to come over into your business. Your beliefs, your core values, your attitude, because if I have a bad attitude and then my customer come and speak to me anyhow, I'm going to want to react in that same manner and speak to that person anyhow. But at Sears Consultancy, we don't do that. If our customer come and they're not, we have a kind of exchange that we don't agree, we try to understand where they're coming from. You understand? So
Yeah.
that's how you impact your business, because it will come out in how you deal with your customers, how you deal with your finances. Meaning that, okay, do you want to rob your customers? Do you want to deliver poor service but get more money for poor service? You understand? And I agree with you 110%, Ivor. You cannot separate you from your business.
Because what I see in lots of businesses, stores that you walk into, um, business owners or managers speak to their staff anyhow in front of customers, and that is a turn off because you
Oh
will
my.
see people not returning to your store, and then with social media right now, as soon as something happens, it goes live. Now, sometimes we tend
True.
to, sometimes we hope that it is going to disappear because as we would say, certain things are like a 7-day wonder. Give it a week, it is going to disappear. But stuff on the internet does not disappear like that. So,
Mhm.
somebody will bring it up back when there is another incident, and they keep they will keep bringing it up, and then if something else happens, they will say, well, there was a previous incident and this is it. So you have to be able to, when these kinds of things happen, get in front of it, and also let people know that this is not a representation of your business, and that is why it is important to have a crisis management system. So if something happens within, or a policy, if something happens within your company, this is what we do, this is how we deal with it. So it means that you will have to get in
Excellent.
contact with a professional to create such a policy for your business. So when certain things happen, this is what we do, and it means that everybody who's working in that business, from the owner straight down to the security guard, the cleaners, everybody needs to know how we deal with a crisis, because many times when things happen in businesses, sometimes we don't even know, but the staff working in the company will come out and they will tell a friend, and then they tell somebody else, and then it turns into something, very big. So we have to know,
Mhm.
we have to be able to identify what is going to be the problematic areas that you would have mentioned earlier. And then how can we work around these? How do we deal with it if this happens?
And Ivor, I totally endorse what you're saying, because even recently I saw a post on Facebook whereby somebody was articulating the fact that they are totally, totally, totally disgruntled by owners who treat their staff badly, especially when they come when customers are there and they speak to the staff anyhow, and kind of embarrass them. And that particular person was saying that she would not go back, and she sometimes she wants to call out these persons who are actually doing it. But what we at Sears would help those people in doing is, like you said, we outline a procedure. And so, but before outlining that procedure, there is significant need in this country for customer service training. We offer that. For um, etiquette, people do not understand how to deal with that. They don't understand do not speak over somebody who's speaking. Ask for an excuse. Wait until somebody is speaking before you interrupt. These things, telephone, how to deal with your customer in store, because there are situations, and there is where we go through these role play for best what's happening good, and what if somebody come and they have a really bad day, and they just blow up on the customer services representative. How should they deal with that? And so we have several procedures to deal with that, but it's key also to have management involved, because most times management just, okay, they pay for these training, they send the staff, and they do not show up. But we have to have a top down approach and a bottom up approach. Top down, bottom up, and then we go lateral. And so that's what Sears do. Sears Consultancy Services offer a top down, bottom up, and a lateral approach to customer service training. So we just don't come in and tell people, oh, you could do this, you can't do that, don't do this, do's and don'ts. No, we show them how to do it from the top down, the bottom up and lateral. So that is what makes us unique. Sears Consultancy Services offer a unique product to its customers. Additionally, with that same point that you mentioned in terms of outlining, now, when we do the top-down solution, we show the manager how he or she should operate in any given situation. There is need for managers to respect themselves first.
Exactly.
You understand? When you respect yourself, it's easy for you to respect others, even in a bad situation. You understand? And so, because a lot of people flunk HR, they don't understand how to deal with people, and it's called people management. You understand? The other thing I see that is lacking in this country overall, this entire country, is customer service that comes in and say, you know what, you see a customer browsing around and you come to them and you say, how can I help you today? What's happening today for you? And you have a good conversation and you get that person to buy in. But most times you go into a store now, because people do not want to hire, they have like one person, that person most time trying to fix the products. Nobody to assist you. So we need persons there to assist the customers, engage them in a nice, friendly conversation, a welcoming conversation, not an overbearing conversation. And so that's how we teach our customer service. That's how we deliver our customer service product, because there are some stores that they have the staff, right? And when you go in there, like 4 of them walking around you, or the walking behind you all the time, but they're not saying like, how can I assist you? What are you here to get today? Do you need any help? You know, that kind of thing. And so we offer a solution that will help you to build your credibility, build trust, build goodwill, and those are some of our offerings to form a lasting impression. So if there's any business listener, any person on this platform that is listening, and you have a business and you need help, call Sears Consultancy on 592-663-2883, and we will help you to build that solution that is designed uniquely for your business to form, and not only form a goodwill, trust, and credibility, but it will, I guarantee you, it will result in revenue increase.
Siobhan, we're going to go to a break. So when we come back, we're going to continue with this discussion.
Excellent, no problem.
Running late and can't wait at the gate? We got you. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited has introduced a fast and easier way to make payments to your accounts through the GT&T mobile money services. Here's how. Click on the MMG app. Under Services, select Pay Bills. When you are there, look for the Financial Institution option. Once that is done, select Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited to pay your loan or make payments to your savings. Payments to the credit union made easier. GPSCCU, the credit union you can bank on.
And welcome back. You are tuned into Insight on 104.1 Light FM. I'm your host, Ivor Wharton, and my co-host is Siobhan Sears. So, Siobhan, we were having a conversation just now in relation to stores.
Yes.
On, good Lord. I wouldn't say any street.
Yes, stores that, kind of experience some form of negative customer service.
Yeah, because what I find is that...
I believe also, if I may, Ivor, jump in right here. From time to time, some stores, they genuinely experience a crisis or some form of reputation issue whereby something happened in store and the person probably put it on Facebook and, it kind of put a negative impact on the store. However, the owner or the manager would have a different intention, meaning that that was just some individual customer service representative who might have had a bad day or something and just inflict the kind of negativity on the customer, but it's not what the store or the company stand for. We come in, we will be able to deal with that, and maybe there's a couple things you could do. The easy, cheapest way is to have a press release done, but I don't necessarily sign up to press releases because there's no face behind a press release.
Yes.
When we write something and put it out there, people do not feel empathetic with it. They don't feel, oh, like you really mean it, because it's like, who's saying that? I don't know who's saying that. And so, do I empathize with this store? No. But then if you come out of what we call talking heads, or you do a press conference, but sometimes the gravity of it may not require a press conference. And so you have a talking head. So let's say Sears Consultancy, we're assisting you there. We'll have maybe a live or something, and then we'll say, well, we have here Mr. Ramsing from somewhere, or Chevron Sears representing Ivor Wharton. And so this is what occurred, and this is what we stand for. And now I hand you over to Ms. Wharton, who will give you a deeper insight as to what occurred and how they plan to deal with it, and how to not prevent it from ever happening again, or mitigate it, because in some situations you can't prevent it from not happening, meaning eliminate it completely, but then you could mitigate the impact. You understand?
Because you see, one of the things that what I find here is that this is not, reputation management is not something that is new, but it seems and it feels new to businesses in Guyana. Large companies, large international companies and corporations, they understand this. They understand the importance of this, of reputational management. They understand how a small issue can cost them. But sometimes we kind of like take things for granted, but then we have to now understand where Guyana is going, and the fact that, well, the internet is now really being used. So with all of this, you will have to invest in, managing your business, the reputation of your company. And in managing the reputation of your company, everybody on staff will have to be in tune with what the company stands for. So if it means that, well, you would have recognized that somebody has anger issues or something, that you have to send them for some sort of counseling and these kind of things, you will have to do it if you want to keep them on staff, because the reputation of your company is at stake and your investment is at stake. Because one person, you would have somebody coming in, I went to this store and she's just talked to her customers anyhow. When I don't like it, I ain't going back. Imagine you now go and tell 5 other persons, and then 5 other persons, but Chevron tell me that she went into the store and the woman don't talk to she people nice, and me going in because Chevron really know these things, and Chevron don't lead me astray, and you now would have lost 5 customers based on what somebody would have, somebody's experience. But generally that is not, what really occurs or obtains in the business. But this day it did happen, and it happens when somebody like Chevron, who don't really like these things, and she goes and she shares it, and then the 5 will now go and tell other people, and that will have an impact on your business, because word of mouth, we may say that we can spend all this money we want in advertising our businesses, but word of mouth really carries weight.
Certainly, and I totally agree again with you, because when I was formulating this company, and public relations, everybody kind of focus on public relations. So how do we deal with the public? What we need to do, what we shouldn't do, and that kind of thing. But then nobody zoom into the critical things, which is reputation, like you said, because that's a big thing. Especially when you have a brand and you want to build a brand, and so therein lies the critical thing: your reputation. Are you reputable around the world? Are you reputable locally? And remember, in order for you to be reputable around the world, you have to first build locally, which means when people hear your company's name, your store name, your business name, they must say, yes, I had a good experience. I'm like 99.9% of the reviews must be positive, not where you have 99.9 of the review negative. That's mediocrity, and I hate mediocrity. I'm telling you, I hate mediocrity. And so we have to be able to bring not only our businesses, in bringing our businesses to a level whereby it's reputable. We bring in our country to a place where it's reputable, and therefore we are building a legacy. So businesses in Guyana, we have to find a way to build our brands and build it to the level whereby it's 110% credible. Forget mediocrity, whereby you say, oh, you got some big business and every time something happening, and we all could pick a business and think about it. That, oh my God, every minute they have an issue. They have an issue every minute. So we need not be like that. And herein lies Sears Consultancy. Let's assist you in building a reputable brand, a brand that will be world class.
And that is it. And I hope that, persons are paying attention and would make the investment in managing the reputation of their business and also ensuring that their staff understand what this actually means. Many times, and not just locally but internationally, you see companies just disappear because of one incident. Persons would just stop buying, and we have to, as business people, you have to understand that a customer has no problem taking his business elsewhere. You can't stop them from taking their business elsewhere. So you have to ensure that that customer is comfortable bringing their money to you. And that is what
And
we
I
have
always
to
say,
understand.
Ivor, you know what? Win one customer at a time. That's one of our mantras. To win one customer at a time. Because you know why we say that? So that we could satisfy that one customer at a time. When that customer is satisfied, we'll have, like you mentioned earlier, everybody is called testimonials or referrals. And so a customer could stand and say, yes, this company offer what it delivers what it says it's gonna do. You understand? And so you have to be able to deliver the product, deliver the service, and deliver it to its highest standard. And herein lies where we call, when Sears Consultancy, we build solution for relationship management, which is business to business and business to customer. It's right on the reputation, because when you're gonna deliver a service either from a business to a business or a business to a customer, it must be of the highest standard, the highest level. It must have some form of validity that that customer at the end of the day would say, yes, I am happy with my product. I'm happy with my service. And so we are able at Sears Consultancy Services to manage your relationship between your customer and your business.
And I should say that even if you're running a one-man business, you still need to have a policy that addresses crisis management. So no business is too small or no business is too large to have a crisis management policy because it is going to safeguard you.
It's so true. And the thing about it, once you have it in place and all the relevant, you see, having one is okay, but if you have one and nobody know of it, we have a
Yes.
problem there. And so when we build that solution, we also educate and inform all of the persons involved, the beneficiaries, the stakeholders, the owners, the managers, the lowest staff to the highest staff has to be educated on this policy.
Yeah, because many times you companies, they have lots of policies. They have different policies, but no one knows exactly um, where these policies are. They didn't even know that a policy was created, and many people would just create policies for their businesses so that they can become compliant. But you have to be able to implement those policies, because those once the policies are implemented, it means that um, it is only going to see your business improve. You can't go, it's like many instances companies will go and do these what do you call it, the driving programs, and
Yes.
but then the drivers don't ever follow anything that they learn from these defensive driving classes. They continue to drive the same way, and you will see that they will cause accidents. Now this is going to actually cost the company money. So if it is that you're going
Mm-hmm.
to send your drivers to do defensive driving classes, it means that they have to implement what they have learned in those classes. And the same thing goes for crisis management. The same thing goes if you have your businesses certified under or ISO compliant. You have to implement the necessary systems so that your businesses can improve.
I heard you said something just now, and it just hit home that you said, sometimes people do go and do these programs, but they do not implement it. And that's crucial, because imagine you paying so much of money to do a program and you don't implement it. It means that the monies, a couple of things, not only the monies invested lost, but you waste your time, and a lot of time is lost. And we know time is money and time is everything. And so in being calculating, Sears Consultancy Services Incorporated, we have a program as well called behavior change communication. And so how do we change our behavior when we learn something? How do we use it to maximize and to make it work for us, and even what we call expand whatever we're doing? So let's say I pay $1 million to participate in a program. I'm looking for at least 300% of my investment turnover. So how do I use whatever knowledge that I would have gained from that program to make 2 million? 2 more millions. I invested $1 million and I made 2 million on that million that I invested. So we have this program, and it's very good, and we again customize it to suit your business. Behavior change communication. How do we inculcate that into all that we're doing, whether it's crisis management, whether it's reputation management, relationship management, whether it's communication management? How do we use behavior change communication in that entire process to ensure that the persons who are there are really taking it away? What are the takeaways? How are they using the takeaways? Because, a lot of people go to these customer service training and then they leave, and business as usual. It cannot be business as usual. We have to change, and we have to see that change. And so we have that program built into all of our our solutions to ensure that you are benefiting and your investment is double or tripled over a period of time.
Well, Siobhan,
Meaning return, investment return, you understand? So if I invest $1 million, I want to maybe, my objective is to gain 2 from that one that I invested. So your return of investment, how do you see that coming back to your business, coming back to your corporation, coming back to your industry, coming back to you as a person?
well, I know that reputation management is something that we could talk on whole night, but our time is actually up. So this is something that we're going to continue with on Monday, because I find that I think that it is an important topic that we really need to talk on. And I think that persons can take the opportunity to call in to us, or they can send messages via WhatsApp 640-1410. And Siobhan, you can give your number. If persons need assistance, they can contact us, or you can reach
592-663-2883, or check us out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Sears Consultancy Services Incorporated.
All right. So good evening, and it's always a pleasure, being here with our listeners, sharing information that I hope they can use to grow their businesses.
Yes. Thank you, listeners, from both Iva and I and the entire technical team.
Bye.
Who you getting right?
Absolutely.
Running late and can't wait to the gate? We got you. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited has introduced a fast and easier way to make payments to your accounts through the GT&T mobile money services. Here's how. Click on the MMG app. Under Services, select Pay Bills. When you are there, look for the Financial Institution option. Once that is done, select Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited to pay your loan or make payments to your savings. Payments to the credit union made easier. GPS CCU, the credit union you can bank on. Running late and can't wait to the gate? We got you. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union Limited has introduced a fast and easier way to make payments to your accounts through the GT&T mobile money services. Here's how.